This is a Lord of Skulls, and this is a bits box that I bought from a mate of mine. Thank you, Bruno. And I'm gonna use this bits box to turn this guy into a mobile shrine to Khorne. And first thing, I need a little platform. So I got this piece of MDF and it's cut nicely to size. It's gonna sit up on top here. And that's going to be kind of the platform where everything Khornish is going to happen. So what's going to happen on top of this platform? Well, the ability of the Lord of Skulls is that for every unit it kills, you can manipulate one of the dice that you roll for the blessings of Khorne. So it's kind of like every kill he makes, you get more favor with Khorne. And that's of course perfect for a shrine where they're collecting skulls. Skulls for the throne and of course blood for the blood god. Now he's got these tanks here on the back right now. They're just stuck there with some poster putties, so they're easier for me to manipulate. And I want to make it look like this hose, this pipe, is kind of flowing blood down up into those tanks. So there needs to be skull reaping, blood sacrifices, all kinds of nasty Khorne business. But first, I'm just going to make this look less like wood. And for that, I've got all kinds of nice pieces here in this bits box, like this thing over here. Like I can put this sort of half overhanging the wood, and I got a whole baggie over here with rhino doors and hatchets. So perfect, nice little flat pieces. I could even make a little hatch or something, or make it like a gutter for the blood to flow off. There's even an airplane wing over here that I can use, maybe on the front. I'm just gonna see if I can make a nice composition of plates that is still relatively flat for the guys to stand on. And I think I like the idea of a blood gutter running off to the back into that pipe on the back of the Lord of Skulls. So I'm gonna start with this piece over here. First, I'm just gonna bend it a little straighter so I don't have that weird steeple, I guess. And I'm gonna just glue this one down as a starting point. It's nice big, it covers up a lot of the platform. So I think this would be a nice start right there. I also like this airplane wing and it has a little bend in it. So that could be good over here to just cover up this corner. So I'm just gonna put that one over here. And I got two nice chunks like that. Covers up a lot. I can put another layer of bits and pieces on top of there to just, you know, make it fit a bit better, but this at least covers a lot of the wood right away. And I found one more piece that sort of hangs over the edge. This one, that goes right there. And then let's see what I can make fit, because I have this piece over here, that goes straight there. And then I'm just gonna put a bunch of these rhino doors right here, because this fits perfectly like that. And I'm just gonna keep going. Let's see. The flat side needs to go down, so there's going to be quite a few nubs and uneven surface over here for the guys to stand on. But let's see what I can do. I can always glue more stuff on top or make a sort of double layer. That should work too. I'm just going to start adding a double layer on top of this. So I really want to make it look like this is a heavy platform that's bolted together with bits and pieces that, you know, they got from everywhere. And they don't really care what it looks like. But before I start on a second layer to sort of cover up these gaps that are in there right now, I better think about composition. And for that, I want to introduce you to sort of the main character of this shrine. And it's going to be this guy over here. The Butcher from the Ogre Kingdoms, a nasty resin model, but I think he would be really cool to have here as sort of the centerpiece on this platform. That's the main guy doing the butchering, doing the work. So he needs to be fairly to the front. I guess this is going to be the front. Visible from a mile away. And then he brings two friends with him. These are pitfighters from Necromunda. And they come with this Mercator Sanguinus. Sort of a dude who walks around capturing people. And I really like these two guys because they're regular dudes, but they're really sort of overcharged, overhyped. Really Khorne look and feel, a bit of gladiator, nice chain weapons, and they're pretty small because I don't want any marines on here. I don't want any possessed or 8-bound or anything like that. I want this to be regular dudes doing the best for Khorne. So composition, like I said, there needs to be a place for collecting blood and there needs to be a place for collecting skulls. So this guy needs to be somewhere in the center. I'm thinking right here, a little front, a little center. Actually, maybe he needs a little altar, a little sort of a step up, something for him to stand on. I'm just gonna see, this will do in a pinch. I just put him up there. I don't know if this is going to be the actual piece, But if he stands up there, he stands up above the rest. And also I have to keep in mind, I'm going to try and stick as close as possible to the measurements of this top piece of the Lord of Skulls. So like this, I think he comes almost to the top. Maybe a couple banners in the back. Banners. We need more banners in 40k, guys. I keep saying it. All the banners are disappearing. We need more of them. So he'll be standing here. Now this guy, he is holding a head, and he has his foot sort of up. In the regular model, there's like a body on his base that he's standing on after he's chopped off this head. So I think he could be together with the butcher, pretty close to the butcher, somewhere on that piece right there. Or maybe he could be up front, kind of like an inspiration standing there behind the butcher. I think that's good. And this guy, he's kind of prodding his weapon forward. I think he could be good to prod the next victim forward towards the butcher over there. So he could be on this side over here, like that, pushing forward the next victim to the slaughter block. I think this is already pretty cool, but I want way more stuff on here. I want this to be really, really busy. I want it to be crowded with lots of bodies, lots of, not just dead bodies, lots of living Khorne cultists and followers of Khorne all over this platform, but also all over the rest of the body of the Lord of Skulls. So, let's go get some jackals. So here are 3 of my jackals. I mean, they're assembled and on their bases because I played with them already, but I'm happy to sacrifice these guys for the greater good. So this guy over here, banner, brilliant. I need a banner. And then he, with his banner, I want to put him somewhere up front. And right now, he's carrying this axe, but I think if I clip off the weapon here, clip off the weapon there, I could make it look like he's holding on to a railing of some sort that might be up here. I don't know if Khorne is really into health and safety, but I think it would make sense to have a little railing so that your prisoners can't escape. At least that. So then we have, let me see if I can get this in front of the camera so you don't just have a top-down view. We have a composition kind of like this. The butcher, nice in the center. Let's see if I can make it focus on there. So, butcher nice in the center. Guy with the banner up front. Guy in the back poking somebody forward. Guy here on this side with a couple of skulls, couple of heads in his claws. And then I got this guy over here. Nope. Yeah, this is the problem with dry fitting everything first, but fuck it. So this guy over here, I'm gonna do the same thing as the dude with the banner. You can see he has this axe, and I think I can make him hold on to a pole or maybe have him chained to something like he's holding on. I can imagine it's not a very smooth ride if you're on top of a platform on the Lord of Skulls. So he could be somewhere here in the back, I guess, like a sort of support for the butcher. Now, I might want to add some more jackals, some more Khorne stuff over here. I would love to have, this is something I think I'm missing, I would love to have a tiny demon of Khorne of some kind. Kind of like a nurgling or kind of like a little, what are they called, the brimstone horrors, but then for Khorne. And I have no idea what that would look like, but it would be cool to cover this in sort of essence of Khorne, little bits of essence of Khorne. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let me get some victims for these guys. And for victims, we're going to Cadians. And this one here is good because he does a little step forward, but I can't let him have his gun because if Cadian still has his gun, he's probably not going willingly to the chopping block. So I'm just gonna snip this off. I'm gonna see if I can tie his hands behind his back in some way. Actually, no. I don't think prisoners with their arms tied behind their back are a good sacrifice to Khorne. They need to at least have their arms free and kind of be pushed or sort of moved forward and then kind of accept the death for Khorne. But still, this guy, where's my poster buddy? Right there. He can fit right here in front of the butcher as if he's getting ready to be slaughtered. So, like this, I think I've got a nice main scene for the Shrine to Khorne. I got a sacrificial victim, the Cadian, being pushed forward towards the butcher, ready to be slaughtered. A couple of extras around it, like the jackal with the banner in front and the jackal in the back as well. And I think like this, I have decent sort of composition, and it's time to look for ways that I can actually make this stick and make it work. Now for the centerpiece, I was using this thing and I actually quite like it because look, it has a sort of pipe grill on this side and on that side, and on this side it's open. So great for me to make blood spill out of this piece onto the rest of the platform. So I'm just gonna put it sort of off center right there, just like I had in the original composition. Just gonna clean it up a little bit and then glue it in place. Now that Cadian, the sacrificial victim, was leaning back quite a lot. It was a bit of an unnatural pose. So I'm gonna use this sort of ramp here to stick it next to this piece, this sort of altar that we have, to give him a little place to step up onto the altar. Now, I said before, I need a place for skulls to be reaped and a place for blood to be drained. And I don't think that's going to fit if I want all these guys on here. But I still want to do something with draining of the blood. And I have this piece. This is a half a shell or something. And I think I can turn this into a nice pipe that becomes a sort of funnel if I cut off this sort of pointy bit. And then I can use this as a little pipe to run off blood over there. But it needs a little something to rest on. So I got this piece. I'm just gonna glue it in there. And then I have a nice little blood gutter here that can feed the blood from the victim down there into this grating. That's a happy little accident. I honestly didn't plan that, because this will sit right on top of this pipe. So this goes like that, and it will look like blood is being drained in there to fill up these tanks. Now, like I said, I think it needs a little bit of a railing or some kind of support around it. The guys, the jackals that are having their hands stick out like that, they need to hold on to something. So I'm gonna see if I can make some kind of railing bits and pieces. And so I was rummaging through this bits box and I found this thing, which is the bull bar of one of these rhinos. And why guys? Why is there always a destroyed, weirdly painted rhino in everybody's bits box? I'd love to hear your ideas on how that happens. Let me know in the comments. But since I found this thing, I remembered I actually have my own leftover Chaos Rhino bits. And these come with nice fencing. So I'm gonna use those bits and pieces to make a little nice fence around this platform. Nice. A little railing, not all the way around. I want the front open so the guys in the middle are more visible. And while I was going through this bits box, I found this, a nice ladder, which I'm gonna hang off the edge over here. And I have no idea what this is from. If anybody knows where the ladder comes from, it might be like some terrain kit. I'd love to know, because there are a couple more in here, but I think I could use these in a lot of kit bashes. So if anybody knows, or anybody knows where I can get a few more, I'd love to get them. But I'm gonna put a ladder here on the side and maybe one here on the back. You know, it makes sense. The jackals wanna walk down to the tanks, maybe inspect them or have a little sip while they're working. But yeah, ladders for sure. I've decided not to glue the ladders in place right away, because that would make painting so much harder, because then I have stuff sticking out on all sides. It's time to check the composition once more before I sort of finalize everything and start moving on to little details, because, you know, we're still missing a pile of skull. I think a platform like this could benefit from a bit of barbed wire all around. Banners, like I said before, need banners, and I'm also not sure what I'll do. I could make Khorne banners, but I could also do banners of enemies they've killed, or, you know, victims they've slaughtered, like a little banner from the Krieg squad or from Cadia, or maybe some Space Marine banners. You know, it doesn't have to be stuff that these guys themselves did. They might just have a couple of guys walking around, a squad of jackals, collecting trophies on the battlefields that the 8-bound and so on, and the Terminators and Angron himself have left behind. So let me get this composition done. Okay, here we go. Composition. I think it looks pretty cool. We've got that Cadian there in the center being pushed forward by two guys in the back. Dude up front with a banner, and then the ogre really sticking out on top of there on his little altar. There's only one thing I don't like. The Cadian, this right arm, I took one that just didn't have a weapon because it was easier for me. But I think I want to change this a little bit. I want the Cadian to go to his death sort of willingly, just shouting, you know, I'll be with the Emperor soon, you guys can't hurt me. And he just accepts his fate, but not sort of in a groveling, victim-like way, like a proper Cadian. He dies standing up. So I need to see if I can find a better arm for him, maybe something pointing. If I could have it 3D printed, I would make him give the finger to this big, massive ogre. But I don't have a printer, and I'm busy already. So when I get a bit, it's going to be too late. So I'm just going to look for a nice Cadian arm instead. There we go. Now he's standing nicely with a sort of hands pointing up. I took the arm from the Cadian officer that's normally meant to be pointing with these two fingers. He's pointing up, kind of like, I'll be with the Emperor soon, and you heretics can burn in the warp for all I care. I like the composition like it is. There's a place here at the back that I can use to make a nice pile of skulls. So let's do that next. Cool, a little skull pile over here and a couple skulls scattered on the platform because, you know, like I said, it's probably a bumpy ride when you're on top of that Lord of Skulls. Time for some barbed wire to just finish this railing and close some of those gaps. I just take a long piece of these barbed wires from Green Stuff World. If you want to support the channel, there's affiliate links in the description below for pretty much all of the little bits and pieces that I use here. Except of course that massive bits box. And once it's rolled up, I can take it off and start putting it in place. And I'm just gonna wrap it around these fences a little bit first and then glue it in place with some super glue. Check it out. I think we're getting there. The composition's good. It's complete pretty much. I think I could still put some jackals here on the back, kind of hanging on maybe. I'm not 100% sure. And the thing is, I'm gonna paint this before I put those guys over there because it's gonna be too much work and too finicky to paint everything. I'd rather paint all the guys, the living things, separate from the vehicle. Also, I wanna hang stuff here on the front. Obviously, I've got stuff like this, like a chain. There's gonna be lots of chains hanging here and hooks and maybe heads on hooks and skulls on chains and so on. That's definitely a little decoration that needs to go around this whole platform. But I said before I wanted some banners because we need banners in 40k and I wanted to put them here in the back, but I think it would obscure the whole platform too much. The problem is I already have an issue with 40k that I can't see my miniatures on the table because there's so much terrains and ruins everywhere. And now if I put a sort of wall here, and again, I can't see what's going on top of here, so I'm not going to do that. But I am going to see if I can maybe get some banner poles here on the corners, because I also want to make sure that it is just as high as the actual Lord of Skulls is, because sometimes you play against a few people who are millimeter specific with their line of sight, and I want to make sure they can't complain that I'm modeling for advantage. So I'm gonna go look for some Khorne banners. And I got some nice stuff. I got a banner from Bloodletters, but I also got another Bloodletter sprue over here with a leftover icon, another banner pole. And if I need a banner pole, I got a little wooden skewer, but I also found this thing over here. This thing comes, I believe, from the Khorne chariot or the skull cannon. And I think this would be cool to hang here in the front on a chain, kind of like a pendulum that swings back and forth. Might be nice. Painting. I'm not going to show you every step because that would just take too long. But I'll highlight the strange things or weird things that I might be doing that you might ask yourself, like, why the hell is he doing this? So here, first, I'm going to take some texture paste, and this is just dark earth from AK, could be anything really. And I'm going to sort of plug all these gaps on the platform. There are really big gaps that are around these objects. They just need to be closed off. And this could be dirt, this could be viscera, blood, whatever, caked there, and yeah, that will be the first step. And while it's still wet, I'm gonna take my spatula and sort of drag it out a bit, make it look like there's runoff from the altar, from the chopping block. And especially in these gutters, I'm gonna make sure that there's an actual gutter of blood flowing down. So all these gaps here around that thing are closed, and now I'm gonna use some corrosion texture, again from AK Interactive, to just stipple on a little bit of corrosion here and there. Yeah, it's a pretty big piece, and if I don't do this now, I'm gonna have to use a lot of typhus corrosion to get a little bit of variety in these plates of metal, and I wanna make it look like it's really rusted and true and nasty. Some of these fences as well, the barbed wire too, everything gets just a little hint of corrosion texture. Now, big model, big brush. Let's start with some Khorne red all over the place. All done, just one layer, rough, nasty. Please don't tell Duncan. And now I'm just gonna stipple on a little bit of this, I think it's the equivalent to Evil Sun Scarlet. It's called Demon Red from Tooth & Coats. Now I did a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of black here and there, and now I'm gonna stipple on a little bit of typhus corrosion. And I know people always say when you sponge on, you use one of those blister packs that minis used to come in, but I don't buy minis with blister packs, so I have this stuff. This is a dryer filter sponge. You can buy a whole pack of this on Amazon, and you never have to go and buy metal miniatures anymore just for the sponge that comes in the blister pack. A quick dry brush with Iron Warriors later, and it's time for the armor trim. I'm using Runelord brass, and my whole goal is to just not hit any of the red armor plates. It's okay for me if some of the trim stays red or black or metallic or anything like that. It just shows a bit of battle damage and wear and tear. And If I paint like this, well, then at least I don't have to go back and forth with red and brass again and again and again until finally everything looks perfect. All the trim done. Take a look. I went really quickly, but still this takes about as much time as all of the other previous steps combined. And I dry brushed these tanks and all the other bits with just the same Runelord brass, but then straight over the primer. Now it's time for a wash of streaking grime, and I have this little pot here that I have diluted already. It's about 50-50 streaking grime and white spirits to just turn it into a wash. Now I've reduced the streaking grime and I used a panel liner, a black one, in between these panels to just get a little bit of my shading going, also in all of the recesses. But all of that darkens this thing down a lot. So I'm just going to use some silver to dry brush again, especially these black parts, because a lot of this is going to be hidden. But that's the whole reason why I want it to be a little bit brighter, so it sticks out a little bit when you sort of look under it or you look at the details. And especially these pistons, they of course need to be super bright silver because they're moving, so they won't collect dirt or rust or anything like that. But I'm also going to use the silver on the red, just these edges. Anywhere where I had sort of Iron Warriors before, I'm going to try to highlight again with some silver. Time for rust, and I'm going to do some dirty down rust, very simple, but specifically in these sort of brown patches that I created earlier with the typhus corrosion stippling. And the thing is, I'm not going to use a lot of rust, as in not in a lot of places, but I'm going to make this dirty down rust very diluted, which will make it very bright orange, much brighter than any of the typhus corrosion or any of the other rust washes would get. And that way I'll get some nice little highlights, nice little points of interest along the mini. And while I have my dirty down rust out, I'm going to do the platform as well. But here I don't dilute it so much. I just want it as dark as possible, because the darker the rust, the better the fresh blood spatters show up. Also, real quick to the people from Dirty Down Rust, would you consider making liter bottles, please? Because I'm buying this in sets of 3s and 4s, all of your products. And if you want a brand ambassador, hit me up. Back to the chassis, and it's time for some pigment powders. First, a bit of old rust in these sort of corners where I already put a little bit of dirty down rust, because this dirty down rust, when it gets into these recesses, like you see, it can get a little bit of light, and it's going to be a little bit too obvious that it's just a paint going in there and it's not rusty and dusty enough. So with this pigment powder, it's an easy fix. And then I follow that up with some brown iron oxide pigment powder as well, sort of in the same spot. Look at that glorious rust now with plenty of pigment powder, especially in the recesses. That's where it settles best. And this way also I don't run the risk of rubbing it off, because I'm not using any pigment fixer here. I'm just going in raw. Now, time for the next one, and that's this green one for all of the brass. Check out how beautiful that pigment powder works as a verdigris on this brass. I think it looks cool, nice and dusty again. I'm gonna use the last pigment powder for now at least, and that is iron oxide, a dark one, so black one. And that one is going to go mostly here in the tracks to just get this little iron shavings idea, this dust over there. But I'm also going to use it over here on these exhausts. And I got a couple of exhausts lying there drying. They're still dirty with the dirty down rust, and I'm going to add them later. And I'll use it on there as well, because it's great for simulating soot, for example. Nice and dusty. Now for some contrast, and I don't mean color, I mean in texture. So we got a lot of dust, a lot of powder. Now it's time for some engine oil, and I'm going to use this on all of these pistons to show that no, they're lubricated, they're moving, and I'm going to use this to also get some leaks going, like these hoses over here. This is leaking, this is cut open, so I'm going to just have some streaks going down like this. Skipping ahead a bit because there wasn't much left to do on the vehicle, so I started with the crew, but I want to talk a little bit about what I'm trying to do here with this, guys, and with this paint scheme, because the vehicle with the Bloodthirster bound in it can't collect its own skulls anymore. You know, it's supposed to have this on there and a Bloodthirster sort of manning it, powering it. And the Bloodthirster is still in here, but somehow that top part got damaged, and then followers of Khorne built this platform to satiate the bloodlust of the Bloodthirster in there and still keep that favor of Khorne going. But here's the thing, if this is millennia old, then these guys are maybe decades old. So I want to paint them very differently from the vehicle. Brighter, more saturated colors, less wear and tear on their equipment. But I also want to make a differentiation between them. So I got these 4 guys. Those are the Jakhals and the pitfighters. They are clearly followers of Khorne. There's lots of red in there, and I did the skin, this nice sort of infected red, like I did with my Master of Executions. There's a video on kitbashing this guy on the channel as well. So those are clearly followers of Khorne, but I also like a bit of stupid humor in my minis. So the ogre, I'm not gonna make him a follower of Khorne. Now this ogre, he's in it for himself. He knows that as long as he stays at the top of that altar over there, he's gonna have an endless supply of fresh meat. He's just not allowed to drink all the blood, and he's not allowed to crush any skulls. But other than that, he is in a happy place. And so I'm going to paint him also like the old ogre kingdoms. My very first codex, maybe not the very first one of the first ones I ever bought as a little kid was the Ogre Kingdoms codex. And there the ogres are this sort of grayish, bluish tint. They look more feral, they look more brutal, more animalistic. And I like that look on an ogre. And it also gives me the opportunity to make this guy a whole lot darker, while the Cadian Trooper is going to be one of the lightest things on this tableau. And I think that's, you know, it's a nice little show of the bad guys black and the good guys white. The light of the Emperor coming down on the Cadian. I'm going to see if I can do that as well. And then sort of the nasty horror guys are much darker and sort of obscured. So here he is with some nice bluish skin, and I'm just going to get some Ichor of the Damned all over him. It's going to make him darker, even more dark than he is now. And it also has a little bit of a glossy finish. All of the villainy inks enamels have a much more glossy finish than you might be used to if you use AK Interactive, Streaking Grime and so on. But this will make his skin look a bit more oily and a bit more nasty as well. And I'm going to add some bright red Carrion Crimson on those bits of flesh that are stretched, because he has these bones poking through his skin and flesh hooks and so on. And all of them I want to make look like they're just not doing too well. And then he needs a little dry brush of white just on the upper ridges of the model. I just want to make it look like some of this skin is being sort of pulled tight, and so it's losing some of the blood flow in there. And then it's finally time for some blood and gore. And I'm going to paint this part over here, the terrain texture paste that I used, with some Berserker red first. And that's just to mask the color of the primer. Then a wash of Ichor of the Damned to turn it really dark, but still glossy. And I'm also going to start working in some streaks already, because I know this is pretty much where people are going to get sacrificed. So I can start with some Ichor of the Damned here and have it run down, sort of connect this spot over here with all the gore and the nastiness that is on the platform. And of course some Carrion Crimson, but not really covering everything. I don't want to make it a wash. I want to get some color variation going. So you have some of the Ichor of the Damned, some of the red base, the Berserker red that I used before, and now some of the Carrion Crimson here and there, just to, you know, not make it all one color. And then I go back and forth with some Ichor of the Damned and some Carrion Crimson to get more of this pattern going, like this, some variety. And I mix a little bit, make the Carrion Crimson a little bit darker, and just keep going like this. Next up, Zombie Gore from Two Thin Coats, kind of a dark version of Blood for the Blood God. And it's good to make these big globs with. For example, here at the end of this funnel, this here needs to be covered in proper slimy fresh blood. And then some good old Blood for the Blood God. I'm going to use it quite sparingly, mainly here in these places where you know there's going to be blood flowing, because I don't want this to become too bright. Time for some blood spatter, because right now it's all a little bit neat. It's nice and gross, but a little bit neat. So I'm just going to flick on a little bit of these blood drops with Blood for the Blood God, just to get a little bit of spatter going. And naturally, the crew gets a little bit of blood spatter as well. If they're standing there as somebody gets sacrificed, they'll get hit. And that's also why I left the apron of the butcher so nice, bright white. So just a little, not too much, something like that. That will do. Now the others get a little bit of splattering too. Time to assemble so that I know where the blood is now going to flow down from the platform onto whatever is underneath it. Before that, I am going to glue some of these chains onto the platform, sort of hanging underneath it. And some of these are from the rhinos, some of these are from the bloodletters, the skull chariot, whatever it's called. And I believe there's something from Bloodthirsters here as well. I'm just going to hang it, have it dangling underneath this platform, and then some ladders. And then we see where the blood is going to flow. I have no idea how I'm going to film this, because this thing is getting so big. It's barely visible from the top down, barely visible from there, but I'm just going to talk you guys through it. Like here, there's a gutter, and there's this ring hanging underneath it. So I'm just going to get some Zombie Gore with a bit of a flat dry brush and just paint on some blood spatter that's falling down like that. And I'm going to do it around the rest of the model as well. Like here's a gutter, and then here at the bottom, there is the part of the let's call it the Lord of Skulls. So I'm gonna have some paints dripping down here and start painting some blood effects down there as well. Now the crew is in place. I still have to do my little Cadian. So I want to add a little bit of light into all of this grim darkness. Like I said before, I kind of like the idea of him invoking the Emperor, of saying his last prayer to the Emperor before he goes to his death. And that the light of the Emperor shines down upon him. It's not going to save him, he's not going to survive any of this. But he'll feel the warm glow of the Emperor. So I'm taking some of this Auric Armor Gold, which is a really light gold that doesn't really cover much, and I'm just gonna give him a little bit of a dry brush going from the top down to make him look like he's glowing a little bit golden, especially up here, his fingers, you know, maybe his hands already in the glow of the Emperor, and then the rest is following. And then when he takes his place onto this chopping block, my Lord of Skulls looks like this, and I am in love. I think this is my best Kitbash so far. I love how old and decrepit the machine looks. I really tried to make it look like millennia old, like there's a raging Bloodthirster in there, desperately in need of skulls and blood. And the humans who found this, or were maybe in the battle where this thing got damaged, they built this platform to satisfy the Bloodthirster's bloodlust and his need for adoration, his need for carnage. And then the guys, the crew that's on top of it, they are much newer there. They're only tourists, they're visiting, they are parasites on this Lord of Skulls. They are fleas, if fleas would sacrifice human beings to their dog. And they really set apart, and I like the way they look, and I like the little ogre. And I know I probably could have done a little bit more here to set him more apart from the rest of the guys, but I think I did a good enough job to make him look like he's not a follower of Khorne. He's there for himself. He just wants a buffet like that, and just endless supply of man meat and orcs and Eldar and whatever else the World Eaters gets their hands on. And then finally, my little Cadian. So initially I thought I would put him there as a prisoner, with his arms bound behind his back, being pushed onto the chopping block, ready to be sacrificed to Khorne. But as I started kitbashing, you know, this is usually how my kitbashes work. They're a little bit freestyle. I don't plan everything ahead. I started feeling like, okay, first of all, that wouldn't be a good sacrifice to Khorne. Khorne doesn't want bound prisoners. He wants slaughter. He wants heroic battles. He wants warriors to die for him. And on the other hand, the Cadian, yeah, he wouldn't really die like a prisoner. I don't think he would be there still, you know, going to his death like that. That's not a Cadian death. So the Cadian is sort of rebelling against him, against the World Eaters around him. He is willingly going to his death on his feet, invoking the Emperor, and that's that little golden light that he has around him. But as he is doing that, he is becoming a better sacrifice to Khorne, because as he is going like this, it's a fairly brave way to end to an end of life. And yeah, this is the problem with 40k, with Warhammer. You try to sort of fight against your demons, and while doing so, you become actually a better prize for those demons. And this little Cadian, I think he symbolizes that really well. Now, I absolutely love making this little kitbash, well, this big kitbash, and I am going to start working on something new. I think it's time I make my Night Lords Abaddon. But if you're interested in more World Eaters content, there is already quite a lot on my channel. I got 2 Masters of Executions, and I got a Shrine to Khorne already. Not mobile like this, but like a little bit of terrain piece that I made. So there's plenty of stuff to see. And in the meantime, check out this video next.